We were supposed to have 6 games on this India tour of New Zealand. 3 of them were washed out. One of them was a tie because of rain. So only 2 full matches, one T20 that was won by India, one ODI that's won by New Zealand, and that means New Zealand win this 3-match ODI series 1-0 to wrap up this India white ball tour of New Zealand. Welcome to ESPN Cricket for Match Day. We're joined by Mitchell McClenaghan and Wasim Jaffer. We didn't get a complete game, but we came very close to getting one. This one saw India fold up for 219 and New Zealand were 104 for 2 after 18. And they would have been ahead of a 20-over target, but 20 overs weren't bowled, and so it ends as a no result. Wasim, we did get to see enough of an India innings, which was uninterrupted, and there wasn't much to write home about that batting effort, was there?
No, not really. I mean, this ODI series has been a little bit disappointing, considering the Indian batting. We didn't get any 100. We lost the tosses. I mean, that's one of the reasons. But still, I feel this Indian batting has a lot of quality, and the scores doesn't suggest that. So, they look back as an opportunity lost. A lot of batters. We didn't get, Shubman Gill looked good. Shikhar Dhawan looked good as well, Shreyas Iyer. But other than that, I thought the batting display was way below par.
Yes, and Mitch, when we spoke, when we built up to this final ODI, you did mention that you'd expect Michael Bracewell to continue playing with the bigger boundaries. But New Zealand perhaps considered the conditions today. There was rain around the corner, and they got Adam Milne back. And it was quite an impressive return. He didn't have the best of outings in the first ODI, but today he was quite a difference and got both the openers, got that prize wicket of Suryakumar Yadav as well.
Yeah, he did. It's only his second game back playing ODI cricket for New Zealand, and from having watched Adam for a long period of time, and I think he would agree, he's just short of a gallop a little bit, but for him to get a couple of wickets under his belt, I think that's his second best ODI figures after 42 games. So that was nice, good confidence for him going forward. I liked it on that wicket. I think even though he got the second ball, the ball winner was a little bit older, he still got a little bit of swing in the air, and that's what excites me about Adam Milne. He's just down on a little bit of pace, so doesn't have that out-and-out attacking ability in the middle like he used to, but I think the more times he gets to go out and run out and play for New Zealand in ODI cricket, the more his pace will pick up.
Wasim, while New Zealand were obviously impressive as they usually are with the ball, a disciplined unit, if you look across the board, most of India's wickets were to batters who sort of gave it away, loose shots, soft dismissals. What do you put that down to? Was it a case of scoreboard pressure, or is there more that went wrong?
Well, I think you got to give it to New Zealand. They are the number one side in the ODI, and they played like one. They haven't lost an ODI for 13, 14 ODIs, and they played like one. And I think they built pressure. I mean, like I said, they won the tosses, important tosses, and India batted when the conditions were a little bit tough. You can probably give that margin a little bit to the Indian batters, but I still feel they have a lot of quality to post bigger scores than that. So they look back on as like I said, missed opportunity. They are still far better players. The ball does swing around. I mean, today was an exception. I think the ball swung around quite decently till about 25-30 overs, but I still feel this Indian team has got a lot of quality to post bigger scores. So these guys will rue that they missed an opportunity to showcase their talent for the World Cup coming ahead.
Quick word from you, Mitch, on one of the unexpected stars of the New Zealand bowling lineup. In India, we often talk about the lack of a sixth bowling option. Today, New Zealand had someone in Darren Mitchell who doesn't bowl a lot. He'd only ever bowled about 9 overs in ODIs before this. But today, seeing the conditions, perhaps New Zealand decided that we don't want to bowl Mitchell Santner. A mix of conditions and the fact that India had left-handers out in the middle. And here you have Darren Mitchell, who hardly bowls, who comes in and takes 3 wickets. This sort of utility cricketer has served New Zealand so well, hasn't it, in their successful runs in World Cups in recent years. And here's another example of just how vital that kind of cricketer can be.
Yeah, definitely. We've had the likes of Colin Munro, Colin de Gronholm have had a big impact on the one-day and test game. for New Zealand. That wily kind of medium pacer, that bustle to the wicket that Daryl Mitchell's got. We know him domestically here to bowl a lot of bounces, and I'm picking that they weren't picking that Daryl Mitchell was going to bowl, otherwise they probably would have scouted that. It's one of his greatest weapons, actually. It's actually quite heavy with that bounce, and as you saw, Rishabh was always trying to come forward to him, and it's one of those surprise balls, but he's the ultimate competitor. You saw when a couple of LBs hit well outside the line, how hard he went up for that appeal. He's just a great man to have in your team.
Wasim, it is a kind of luxury that Indian cricket would love to have, isn't it? A batter who doesn't bowl often, but you can get them along to bowl to fit that sixth bowler's option. One of the players who could be a possible contender for that sort of a role is one of the brighter lights. If we look back at this series as a whole, Washington Sundar will be the standout feature for India. Played that blistering cameo in the first ODI in Auckland, which helped India cross 300. And today as well came in at 125, and he was the only reason India got past 200. Add to that economical spell he'd bowled in that first ODI that India lost, and this is a proper utility cricketer. And given Ravindra Jadeja's fitness issues, a good person for India to groom as a potential backup for that all-rounder role, you think?
Without a doubt. I mean, he is the bright spot of this tour. Came back after an injury and put in a show. Both the ODIs, he batted beautifully, and he's a very good bowler who can even bowl in the power play as well. So and he's very young, and he can mature and become even better cricketer. So Washington Sundar really happy, and India do miss. If you see the teams of 2010s or even before, a lot of batters used to bowl for India. India had that luxury before when Sachin, Sehwag, Yuvraj, all those guys, Saurav Ganguly, they used to bowl. And in this team, you don't see, a lot of batters do that. It's very unfortunate when Hardik Pandya and, Ravindra Jadeja doesn't play. India find that, sixth and seventh bowling option missing. And sometimes when any bowler has an off day, India found, wanting in the bowling department. So India do need to look at this, going ahead and looking at that 2023 World Cup.
Right. Mitch, your thoughts on what you saw of Washington Sundar? Two very different innings, but both of them stand out in their own way. What did you make of Washington Sundar in the series?
Yeah, look, when we were scouting in the IPL at Mumbai, we always got told that he was a very good classical batsman, and what I saw this innings was a mature innings to get a team out of trouble. He was finishing off the innings at Eden Park and did that sensationally, and then to have the ability to switch gears, try and get your team to a defendable total, I thought showed a lot of maturity for a guy who hasn't played a lot of games, and really liked his technique. I thought he struck the ball beautifully and took his options well. So he's promising. We didn't see as much of him as we would like with the ball here, but I guess there's a year up until One Day World Cup where you're going to see him on turning wickets a little bit more like you're going to get in the One Day World Cup.
Right. Now, if we look at the series again on the whole, obviously it's only two matches, and in a way you could say 1.5 matches, and they didn't really get to bowl a lot in the third game. But Wasim, one of the worries, which is not necessarily only from this series, it's a trend from the year that Shikhar Dhawan has found it hard to score runs at a fast pace. He has a strike rate of 75 after 19 ODIs so far this year, which, to put things in perspective, is the lowest for an Indian batter since 2008 in a calendar year. And it just feels like that's a bit too slow, and especially for a batter who's never really been known to have issues with respect to his shot making.
Well, I feel it's partly because we had a T20 World Cup and Shikhar doesn't play that, and India didn't play a lot of one-day international, and he was found rusty. He only came in for 3 ODIs, and he's not played much cricket in between that. So you can understand that rustiness. But I feel going forward, when India is approaching towards the 2023 World Cup, I think India will play a lot of one-days, and I think he'll find his groove pretty quickly. He's one of those players who never has issues with his strike rate. So I'm sure it's going to improve as long as he plays consistently. So I feel it's not a big deal. I can understand why it has happened, because he doesn't get to play that quality bowling, and a lot of matches in between. So I feel going forward, he'll improve upon that. He's far experienced, and he's a quality player in that top 3. So I'm sure he'll improve that.
Mitch, from the perspective of a fast bowler, when you look at a batter like Shikhar Dhawan, what do you think it is that the Pacers are doing, which is perhaps ensuring that he's not able to get runs at the kind of clip we've been used to seeing him get.
Well, look, I actually liked the way he played today. I thought the conditions were so far in the bowler's favour today with the ball swinging and seaming. They were definitely bowler-friendly conditions. There was one moment where I saw Shikhar Dhawan's back, and it was when Tim Southee, he ran down the wicket to Tim Southee, and as a bowler, you're thinking that the batter's going to sit back for that next ball. So in Southee, as a bowler, I was thinking that Southee, look, he could be on to get an LB here if he goes nice and full, which he did, but Shikhar Dhawan outfoxed the fox and came down the wicket and hit him back over the head. So it looked to me like he was thinking clearly in this game. Look, I would put it down to, particularly this series, the fact that you are on bowler-friendly wickets, but also the fact that you did have Washington Sundar coming in at 7. Okay, so ideally he looks like he'd be a great number 8 to be able to come in and finish the innings, or you could promote him if you just need to be able to build a total and you want to keep your hitters a little bit lower. So maybe it was in the back of his mind that they really needed to prolong their batting innings to be able to get the most out of the rest of the order, and that was his job with Shubman Gill at the top.
Wasim, what Mitch mentions about India's batting combination, we know that regardless of most of the combinations that India play, there is always a likely scenario that your batting falls off the cliff after number 7. When India play their best bowlers, it usually means going in with a longer tail. So does that then imply that this will continue to be a knock-on effect on the openers, that regardless of the 11 you're playing, the openers will somewhere have that concern at the back of their mind that we can't really go as all out as, say, the more successful ODI teams tend to do these days?
I think it does play on your mind when your tail is long, and the batting finishes after 7 or 8. It does play on your mind, but you got to consider that Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, they've got heaps of experience, and they played with that long tail a lot of their career. So I'm sure, and players like Washington Sundar, Ravindra Jadeja coming back, Deepak Chahar can bat, Shardul Thakur can bat. So I think going forward, it does look like that problem can be solved in the future. So I'm sure it's not big an issue. India does always have that issue of long tail, but going forward, I see that improving in 2023 World Cup.
You mentioned a host of names there, Wasim, and that sort of tees me up to what I want to ask next. India, of course, are back in ODI action as recently as on Sunday itself, where they begin 3 ODIs against Bangladesh. If you look at these two squads, the one that was picked for New Zealand and the one that's picked for Bangladesh, there are 25 different players in the mix. Only 6 players in common in these two squads, which are Shikhar Dhawan, Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer, Washington Sundar, Shardul Thakur, and Deepak Chahar. I know we've heaped a lot of praise on the talent pool available for India, where you think that there are potentially 3 different 11s you can line up, which are of international standard. But are India somewhere getting lost in these combinations by playing too many people?
I personally feel that the more choices you have, you kind of confuse yourself, and that has happened for a long time. India need to zero it down to probably 17, 18 players and just play those players consistently. I mean, we know that we've got a lot of talent and potential in our country, but we can't pick and choose from 30 players. I mean, it's not really good and it's not ideal, because you want that combination to keep on playing, so it helps the captain, it helps the coach as well. So I feel sometimes having too many players, it does create a problem.
And it's one of those things you would have thought is a lesson perhaps taken from the last World Cup cycle. I know it's different formats, but in the 1 year between the 2021 and the 2022 T20 World Cups, India tried out as many as 29 players. And yet you did end a World Cup thinking that there were places, there were areas in the team that India never really covered up completely. Mitch, when you look at it from this perspective, and we discussed Sanju Samson at length, who's one of the players who tends to bear the brunt of this constant chopping and changing. Are India harming themselves by giving a lot of players few chances as opposed to earmarking a few and giving them a lengthy run?
Yeah, look, I think it is. We touched on it the other day, but the planning doesn't start like 1 year out. It has to start 3-4 years out. So you can get these guys 30, 40 games of international cricket, because when you come to a World Cup, you don't want a guys just done 1 year of playing 12 games. in going into a World Cup, because the pressure's different and you need to learn in all different conditions against all different sides. So the planning needs to start nice and early. So I don't know how many opportunities a guy like Samson's going to get in this year leading up to this World Cup. I'd say after this series, the way New Zealand dominated in most facets of the game, I think India will buckle down and start to start trying to define what their best side is over this next 12 months.
MS Dhoni had famously said before the 2015 ODI World Cup, this of course is the last Indian captain to have lifted an ICC title, that you need to give players 40 to 50 games before you blood them into a World Cup situation. India don't have those many games left, about 20 to 25 odd that they'll play between now and the next ODI World Cup, which is in India in October, November 23. Mitch, let's also get a word in on New Zealand, because obviously we are 10 months out from a World Cup. 1.5 games don't give you a great picture, but how do you see this New Zealand side shaping up, not just with respect to the 11, but also in terms of the backup options that they may be building up looking ahead to that World Cup in India next year?
Yeah, I think we're looking sharp. I think we really are. I think we've got a pretty solid lineup or squad. I think there's still the two innings that Finn Allen's played, although he scored runs today, there was a couple of chances there as well, where I think if the Indian team were onto it and off the boundary, there could have been a couple of catches taken. I'm not sold on whether it's Guptill or Finn Allen. I guess they're going to give Finn a really good extended run leading into that World Cup. I think Guptill will be in the squad. He's too good to leave out of that squad. The only other question mark out of the guys who played today is who's they need to look at maybe another seamer potentially, in terms of if Adam Milne's going to be off the pace a little bit and not going to be that express wicket taker in the middle, as we have seen in the past. If Lockie Ferguson goes down, who is that guy? Are we looking at a Ferguson? Are we looking at Ollie Newton? A couple of guys who haven't even played international cricket. If they are on the radar for this next World Cup, then they've got to play some games very, very, very quickly.
Yes, and New Zealand will have a week or two to think about their combinations. They're next in action in that tour to Pakistan, which starts later in December. We're just about done with this show, which also wraps up our coverage for this India tour of New Zealand. Mitchell McClenaghan debuted on Cricinfo during this series. Mitch, it's a shame we saw so much rain and not as much cricket, but we hope you had a good time here at Cricinfo.
No, it was fantastic, mate. I really enjoyed it, yeah, barring the rain. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward. Hopefully, I think there's an earmarked 3-match series with India a little bit later leading into the World Cup. So I'm excited for that and see what the combinations are in that series. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mitchell. Thank you for your company on Cricinfo, and we look forward to having you in the future. Wasim, from an Indian perspective, of course, these things tend to roll a lot quicker. So I'm guessing it's just a few more days, potentially. And we see you again as India play Bangladesh. But thank you, as always, for your time and thoughts, Wasim.
Thank you, Yash.
Yeah, that just about does it from us on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. That's India tour of New Zealand done. As we said, India will be in Bangladesh before you know it. Watch the space. We'll be looking ahead to that, setting up that series as well. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.